Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our special session this afternoon, which is an EdTech panel where we get to explore the integration of technology in education. Those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Abigail, and I spent over 25 years in the classroom as a SENCO. But since then, I've had the privilege of working with hundreds of schools, reviewing their provision and training their staff. Joining me today, we have got three fantastic guests who bring a wealth of expertise into the field of educational technology. They're going to give us a quick wave in a second. So first of all, we have got Arran, a former UK Microsoft SEN consultant and founder of several SEN businesses. Arran's extensive experience in the technology integration has been instrumental in supporting teachers and schools in meeting the diverse needs of their students. Next, we have Dale, the head of B Squared, a platform that focuses on small step progress tracking for students. Dale's expertise is in special education, and his podcast, the Sendcast, has made him a respected figure in the field. I wonder what I'm going to say about Paddy. Lastly, we have Paddy, the head of education for Texthelp, an organisation specialising in assistive technology solutions. Paddy's knowledge and experience in educational technology have contributed significantly to creating inclusive learning environments. In today's discussion, we're going to cover 5 key areas. This might be news to our guests. We're going to look at the benefits of technology integration, strategies for maximising efficiency, tips for selecting and implementing technology solutions, overcoming challenges and concerns, and creating inclusive learning environments through technology tools. We'll also touch on some best practice for data management and integration. So we'll start with that first one, the benefits of technology integration. And I'm volunteering Arran to start talking first today.
Right. Okay. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Right. Now everyone's laughing, and now I forgot the question. Do you want to read the question again to me, Abigail?
What are the benefits of technology integration into schools, into classrooms?
The benefit is being what's the word I'm thinking of? The word is kind of being individual, being that person that being able to just do it yourself, being on a level playing field. The benefits can just change self-esteem. Like for me as a dyslexic adult, having technology allowing me to be independent, that's the word I was looking for, independent. An independent learner is what it's all about. And I think that's having that technology available and being able to use it is really powerful.
Thank you.
That was very good. That was a very precise answer, wasn't it?
It was a very precise answer. Well done, Arran.
For me, yeah.
Dale, what would you add to that? Benefits of technology integration.
To me, I'm going to split this into 2 bits. There are those devices that you use, like hearing loops, things like that. That tech is all there. But when we think of computers and all the tech, as Arran says, that independence, there's so many things now with AI and live translation, live things like that, which makes life so much easier for so many pupils. There are so many benefits to using technology in the classroom, and we've got to get over that fear we have that fear of how technology could be used negatively. We've got to focus on the positives and teach people how to use it positively.
Nice answer. Thanks, Dale. And Paddy, last but not least for the moment.
As always, I'll steal from Arran. Arran in the lead there with independence for sure. But I think it's important to note that independence inspires and builds confidence with our students as well, of any age. For teachers, there's a lot around efficiency and productivity, and I think those are really important advantages of EdTech. And then for schools, of course, there's new ways to deliver the curriculum. There's new ways to deliver targeted and individual support. And while some may not see it as such, oftentimes EdTech can actually contribute significantly to cost efficiencies and cost savings as well. And I think outside teaching and learning and individual support for pupils, I think it's important to bear that in mind. It doesn't mean that we have to spend a lot of money to create those efficiencies and that confidence and independence for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Paddy. I think we've spoken about that several times, and I talk about with you that certainly for access arrangements and exams, that investment early on in using EdTech can reduce that end cost in terms of having to stick an adult at the side of somebody to do the scribing or the reading in an exam. And it is, as everybody has said it develops the independence in students, which is really, really important. Let's have a go at our second one then. What are our strategies for maximising the efficiency of using EdTech solutions? Dale, I'm coming to you first, only because you raised your eyebrow at me.
To really maximise efficiency of technology, it needs to be a whole school approach. It needs to be collaborating. So using tools like Teams, SharePoint, Google Drive, anything like that, calendars, anything where you can communicate, I call asynchronously. Yeah. So currently we're all in this webinar, we're all chatting away, and to listen to this, you have to be here, and that's synchronous, and it's all expensive. We all had to clear our calendars and find time to do it. Asynchronously will be anyone watching this after the event. They're fitting it within that schedule, and asynchronous communication is so much easier to do. So if I just type a message in my phone and Abigail responds an hour later, we work out a way to communicate. And that's one of the ways I think with technology, we can have that communication asynchronously, but it can be much more effective. You're not waiting to get hold of that person, which can take a long time. You can fire off messages. So to me, the efficiency comes through collaboration, working together, and that communication.
And that whole school approach, as you say. Thank you. Paddy, what's your take on it?
Maybe a controversial opinion, given I work for a commercial company, but don't listen to sales teams. And why I think that's important.
Yes.
And I mean this genuinely, in that you'll often talk about people talking about transformational change or systemic change, and that's very scary for people, thinking that introducing EdTech has to mean a complete change in their practice or a complete change in how they approach their pupils or their workload. And I think, referring back to some of the pieces Dale said, for me, it's those little things that are a very important part of the strategy change. Dale mentioned a couple of them, but using things like Google Chat to communicate with your peers, or Teams Chat, depending on your platform in school, really, really save a significant part of time, and people can see the benefits in there. And I think those things are really important. Simple things like using something like Google Lens or Microsoft Office Lens, and even the camera on your iPhone. Any of those tools, take a photograph of some text that you need, and suddenly that text becomes editable and becomes readable and can be read aloud. Those are really, really tiny things, but can make a substantial difference to your own workflow for gathering notes or research, or for your pupils from an accessibility perspective. A lot of those small things, and I think Daly mentioned it also, things like collaborative documents. If you think about, from an efficiency standpoint, the amount of times we used to trade documents and send it to our peers to get edits done on them, to then realize you're on the wrong version and you haven't been able to figure out who did the last change. Collaborative documents, whether that's on a Microsoft platform or a Google platform, really enable you to do those live and save a ridiculous amount of time and efficiency. So I think that's really important. Start on the small things. And the last thing I would say to add to that is that this change needs to be led both ways. When you plan a strategy, it has to be led by example from the top, and it has to be led from the regular classroom practitioner, and indeed the TAs and CAs in the classroom. These things are really, really important, but small changes for me are a big, big part of the strategy. Don't think about transformation in the next 3 months and it's going to completely revolutionize practice and your grading and Ofsted. It's not going to do that, but these small changes can make a huge, huge difference to your everyday job and life.
Amazing. Thanks, Paddy. Arran.
I think that Dale and Paddy have said it. From the top, it has to come down from the top, and it has to be led from that senior leadership team, and they have to have bought into it for whole of technology change. But also, it needs to think actually and take a step back. I went into a number of schools with my Microsoft hat on, and they'd be all about one-to-one devices, all about shared devices. But actually, the thing they were forgetting was actually what was the teacher going to use? Was the teacher going to use that desktop that's still in the classroom, that's still on the old version of Windows and actually takes 3 hours to load? Or is it actually going to invest in your staff devices first? And that's what I've seen, is that if you invest in staff first, that systematic change happens. But the other side of it is empowering your IT team. I've been into a number of schools being quite open and rude about certain people that are working in schools like that. They are either coming to the end of their career and they don't want to learn new things. So actually that puts a real barrier to some schools actually growing. So it's actually that buy-in from senior leadership, buy-in from the classroom teacher, and buy-in from IT actually has to marry together. But that is where assistive technology and technology around accessibility can really drive, because you then have that third point from the special needs coordinator, from the Allen Co, from accessibility and reasonable adjustment actually can drive that four-pronged attack.
Thank you, Arran. I think from my perspective, it's and you all kind of touched on it in a way. It's not just using that technology for our students, but it's also using it for ourselves. So I don't like WhatsApp. I know, controversial. I actually use Viber.
I'm with you.
Thank you.
I don't like it.
Fair enough. I use Viber, but Viber has a really nice little tool on it that if I'm on Twitter or if I'm reading a news article or anything else and I want to read it later or I want to save it for myself, I can send it to notes on Viber and it just stores it there for me. So I haven't got to focus on it there and then. I can save it and I can refer back to it. Something as simple as that can be so useful for those of us who are time constrained at times, but know that we want to go back to it. But I don't really want to go all the way through my Twitter feed to go and find it again. I just want to be able to pick up that one document. And it's much better than sending it to myself on email before somebody says, why don't you just email it to yourself? Because if I do that, I can guarantee it'll get archived before the end of the day and I'll just lose it. Anyway.
There's a new feature in Teams which allows you to do the same thing. So you can now have a chat with yourself in Teams.
Yes, you
so
can.
So that's
You're
what I do that
right.
for.
Yeah.
Exactly the same reaan.
I was just going to say, Abigail, just for me, and whilst I said ignore the salespeople, I mean, obviously we have read and write, and read and write is there for a very specific reason. It was generated for text to speech to support dyslexia. By and large, that was the reason to be. But I find myself using it in the head of a teacher with just the digital highlighters, because I can go through when my boss sends me a PDF and says, can you please summarize this? What did I do before? I printed it out. I took the physical highlighter, I highlighted it, and then I went, what do I do with this now? Does this mean I have to retype the sections? What do I just hand it to him highlighted? What do I do? Now what I can do is I can highlight the relevant sections, the key points, and it automatically spits it out into a Google document. And that's not, yes, pupils use that, but by and large, they'll use that tool for something completely different, like text to speech. But for me, for productivity, I've just found my way to use it that supports me. And I would encourage all staff to explore those student tools and the tools that they have access to and go, wait, what's in it for me? Because I think, my history, and Arran, you touched on CPD, my history with teachers is a genuine what's in it for me. And I think that's absolutely fair of them to ask that question, because we need, when we're training teachers, when we're supporting them, we need to show them how it impacts their life and how it makes their life more efficient, because then the pupils are going to see benefit from it as well, because teachers get behind it at that stage. And I think that's really important, and there's a win-win all around.
And I think that what you've touched on there, Paddy, is right, is that not every piece of software, not every piece of technology works for every person. And that's thing, and actually that feature in Texthelp is a feature that I love better than any other feature, because to me it is really empowering for certain students, and like you said, for teachers, and where like I've been using Teams for years, and I've never used the chat myself feature, but I'm now messing around with Microsoft Loop, which allows me to be even more collaborative. And I found on Saturday Google Keep, which I think is amazing as well. And it's like you find all these things and go, actually, that can work in this situation, and that then leads on to kind of supporting that student and also that teacher and that whole school or college or organisation's approach.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant suggestions there. So use the technology for ourselves as well as using it for our students, because the more au fait we are with it, the more we can actually support our students with it as well. Okay, our third theme, if you like, then. If you had to come up with a couple of top tips for selecting and implementing, and I think you've touched on it already, but selecting and implementing some solutions, what would those top tips be? Paddy, you get to go first.
Wait, hey, how long have we got? Another 45 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Is that where we are?
It's fine.
I always come at technology from an inclusive standpoint, and I think what's very important on that when we're selecting technology is we understand the impact that that piece of technology can have on as many pupils as we possibly can. And I think we need to make sure that when we're selecting tools, that helps us with onboarding our staff. It helps us with onboarding our pupils to make sure that everybody knows how to work a tool. But look at tools that actually can have impact across every level, across every age, across every area of study. I think that's really important. There are core things like our Microsoft platforms and our Google platforms and our Apple platforms that will help that. But then there are also tools that we know, like Immersive Reader or like Read and Write or Clara Read or any of the other tools that are out there that we know can be, and I'll trot out the line here because I think it's important, necessary for some and useful for all. So having a look at those at a holistic level and go, is this tool inclusive? Can the majority of my pupils access this tool and get benefit from it? And actually, can they perhaps access content from almost an assistive way that they couldn't access before? So I think it's really, really important that we select the tools based on the biggest impact we can potentially get and the most inclusive impact. I think those are, for me, that's the kind of the overriding thing for me. The other thing is, I think it's important that most of our tools are as cross-platform as they can be. I mentioned loads of them lately. But I think from a continuity perspective, we need to make sure that pupils can have access to the tools that they have in school at home as well. You know, they might be moving from a PC in school or a Chromebook in school and have an iPad at home because that's what they're used to using. They should have access to those same tools. So it's a question to ask your supplier. Can these tools be used at home independently by mum, by dad, by guardian, by carer, or by the pupil themselves? I think those are really important. That continuity, the ability to take work home and actually use the same tools, I think is really, really important. And I think lastly for me, the big three for me is always around making sure that the tools that you're selecting are either intuitive or familiar to your pupils. Our pupils have a short span of attention when it comes to new technology. And the reason that I feel that is the case is because they're expecting technology and interfaces and buttons to behave in a very particular way. Whether those are pupils with an individual need that are used to a specific platform or just pupils that are sitting using WhatsApp or Snapchat in the evening, they expect technology to perform, and they have little tolerance for things that are slow, that are clunky, that don't work for us, that don't work in an expected way. So have a look at the technology, have a look at a pupil using technology and see how intuitive it is for them. I think that's really, really important because there's two things that I hear about. One is, the pupils don't like it and the pupils don't get on board with it, and that's a problem. And the other thing, of course, is the complete opposite, which is the staff can't really get the grips of it and can't get on board with it, so it's much slower to roll out and get that impact. So familiarity or consistency with what they already know, I think, is really, really important. So that's my three, Abigail, and it didn't go on for 45 minutes. I'm quite proud of myself there.
You've let me down, Paddy.
There's time yet.
There's time yet. You are absolutely right about that lack of patience in terms of something new in front of them. We all know that if you see that right pointing triangle, it usually means play. So if they see a right pointing triangle, they're expecting it's going to play something. If your right pointing triangle in a piece of software that you're using does something different, students will get frustrated with it. And you're probably also going to look at it without realizing what the issue is with, oh, I expected it to do something different. So yeah, absolutely. What you're looking at has to be intuitive to everybody involved. I love that, Deb. Arran, what's your take on this one? How do we, top tips for selecting and implementing those solutions?
It's got to be right for everyone in one way. I think that the one thing that lots of schools do and lots of organisations do is they look at price first. And I think that I always say, forget price. What do you want it to do? So do you want it to improve communication? Do you want it to improve accessibility? Do you want it to improve supportive tools? Do you want to improve attainment? What do you want it to do? And then kind of have that list of what you want it to do and then go, okay, how do we get to that point? And that kind of then looks at that ecosystem that you need. So I think that then looking at specific ed tech is then specific for that individual. So having that ecosystem like a Google platform or a Microsoft platform or even an iOS platform or Apple platform, actually it works together. But I think Paddy hit it for me the right thing, and that is that can it be cross-platform? And that's the thing that it is really important. It was I was doing a talk this weekend up in Leeds, and we had probably about 30 parents, and we had every single device and platform there. So from a Chromebook to a Surface to a HP to a iPad to an Android device to an iPhone, we were able to deliver a piece of technology, a piece of work, and kind of support them in assistive technology across the board, because majority of things are in the cloud. And I think that's the downside to the UK, is that we are so used to having a downloaded piece of software. When you kind of talk to someone about opening Microsoft Word, they expect to press a start button and click on it as an application. They don't actually think of it that it actually can be used in the web, and that's where Google has kind of really kind of expelled on that concept. They've kind of been able to use that concept quite well. And I think that's the kind of way, I think that's what the key for me is, kind of understanding what you need, but when you're there, delivering that training, deliver that awareness, delivering that support, and empowering every user to use it.
Thank you. I think the thing I pick up from that as well, actually, because I other hats on at the time, is using that software for the purpose sometimes that it is intended for, and not trying to use it for a purpose that it hasn't been designed for.
Yeah.
So the big example I can give there is trying to use something like CPOMs for your SEN records, because CPOMs is designed for safeguarding. So
Yes.
you're safeguarding and your behaviour. If you want your SEN records and your IEPs and your EHCs and your provision mapping, use a piece of software designed for doing that. I think that's quite important. And very often when we're dealing with people asking questions about a particular product and they're saying, this isn't working for me, and you ask them, well, what are you using it for? You discover they're trying to use it for something it's not designed for. Hence, it probably won't work. A bit like using an Excel spreadsheet to create a PowerPoint. There we go. Dale, what's your take on those top tips for implementing the solutions?
So first of all, I'm going to refer to some of the podcasts we've done where we talk about doing speech and language. And if you spend an hour of that a week and then the rest of the week you're not really touching on that, your speech and language isn't going to improve. You need to have that bit where you have the hour. You then need to be able to embed that throughout the week. If you're using assistive technology and you just use it in one subject, you're not going to learn to rely on it. It's not going to become second nature. So that cross-platform access everywhere is really important. And then Arran says is I can get my phone out, I can edit a Microsoft Word document, I can get my iPad out, I can do the same document, I can go into a web browser or Word on the computer and edit the same document. It's always with me. And I now rely on that. I now can rely on that technology, and it becomes a habit. When I used to go, oh, well, I have to remember to do that when I get home, I didn't really make much use of it. So that cross-platform is crucial. And if you're going to go cross-platform, as Paddy says, you've got to look at the suppliers. And people like Microsoft and Google have really understood this idea of cross-platform. Some apps are available on both and are perfect on both. Some are great on Apple, rubbish on Android. Others are just on Apple. So it's making sure when you're looking at technology, is it limiting your device choice? Another thing is, thinking of Microsoft and Google, is all Google products have a similar feel. All Microsoft products have a similar feel. So generally, when I'm looking for something new, I'm a Microsoft man. I'm going to go into the Microsoft world. I'll get my phone out. I search for Word on my phone in the App Store, and I go to Microsoft and what other apps have they got going on? Because Google, Microsoft, and Apple never sit still. There's always something new from them. And if you are in the Microsoft camp or in the Google camp, generally these things are coming out free. So you can try these new things, invest in these new things. They generally link to other products you're using already, which means it's familiar, your account's already there. It's all of that is easier to onboard, and our expectations, as Paddy and Arran says, from the pupils and the staff on how it will work, it's going to be very consistent. So start with what you know and go from there, and always be curious.
Ooh, be curious. I like being curious.
Yeah.
And don't be
Abigail, can I
scared.
maybe jump in with two other things just on top of the guys there?
Oh, go on, Paddy. We'll let you.
Yeah, got to pass out for today. This is great. I'm having a ball this afternoon. Thank you. I think, and Arran mentioned this earlier, and I just thought I'd take the opportunity to reinforce it. And I know that sounds rough, but we need to make our IT teams accountable for the technology piece. We really do. If I were to analyze from my own perspective in Texthelp and go, why did it not work in that particular situation? It's because it took 3 months to deploy. And I would have to say, from a company standpoint, we all work really, really hard to make our solutions be as plug and play, for want of a better word, as possible. Look, here's multiple ways to do it. Whatever your environment, you can do this. There should not be an excuse in this day and age to drop in a cloud piece of technology or a desktop piece of technology or whatever it is. We just have to make them accountable, because as a SENCO, if you're putting your neck on the line, you've justified software, you just want it rolled out for the good of your children. What's the point if 3 months later it's not deployed? And we get that, and I think everybody tries very hard to do that, but we do need to hold them accountable. And one thing I'm planning on doing this year ahead is make checklists for SENCOs that allows them to go straight to their IT department and say, have you done this, have you done this, and have you done this? So at least they're a little bit more empowered to go, well, what do you mean no? Well, why are we not there? So that's the first part. And the second part is just on an implementation thing. I think whenever I'm doing sessions, and one of the questions that comes up a lot is, okay, Paddy, what's your one piece of advice? And Abigail, you know from being on sessions with me, I always ask that type of question. But my one piece of advice is always this, and it's 2 words. As a whether you're a SENCO or you're a classroom teacher or senior leader, you've got to provide students with the choice to use the technology, right? They've got to have a choice. Assistive technology it's very core. They've got to know what voice to use. They've got to know what tool to use for entry. They've got to have the ability to make the choice. But actually, if you don't give them the opportunity, they're never going to use it. And that opportunity thing for me is my key kind of point in driving home with SENCOs and classroom teachers. We've got to give our pupils the opportunity. Sometimes technology is turned into what it was. Certainly, I'm old enough, so I remember the time before computers, but I also remember the time when there was just 3 computers in a room where they trucked us up to them. We're going to do the computer things today, folks. That's what we're going to do. And sometimes teachers can fall into a trap of saying, well, I'm going to use this piece of assistive tech or technology in this one tiny element of a lesson. I think, Dale, you picked up on it. It's got to be able to have the opportunity to be used whenever a pupil feels comfortable with using it. And if you don't go, you have an opportunity to use this, kids. If you don't want to use it, that's fine. If you want to use your headphones, that's good. If you want to use this text to speech, that's good. If you want to use Microsoft Word, that's good. If you want to film a video, that's good. As long as they have the opportunity. I think that choice and opportunity are fundamental to all of this once the IT department gets sorted.
I think there's also something on that as well, Paddy, is that it's also then probably that checklist on the SENCO is that reminding the staff and reminding themselves what the product is. It was really apparent. You haven't called Read and Write Gold for 3 years, 4 years. Hasn't been called.
Yeah, we don't. Everybody else does.
Yeah, you haven't called it that, but it hasn't been called that for a long time, has it? The product name changed a long time ago.
7 years.
And yeah, there you go. And that's the thing is that I had a parent come up to me on Saturday and said the school says they've got Read and Write Gold, and I went, well, okay. My first worry is how old is the software? The next thing is, well, it hasn't been called that for a long time. So yes, you've got Texthelp, and this is what you can do. So that I think is that idea you've just come up with of having that checklist for the SENCO, but also for the rest of the staff and themselves to go, actually remember what I've got. Okay, what have I got in Microsoft? What have I got in Google? What have I got that I've paid for? Can I use? It's like that for concept there that actually that you see a SENCO changes. That someone opens the cupboard and there's 27 resources that haven't been used for 20 years, which get that really annoys me.
The awareness, Arran, is crucial. I was at, Abigail knows, I was at a SEN event yesterday, and the most common thing that came up in the round tables was, I was like, what are your challenges with assistive technology specifically in that scenario. What are your challenges and how can I help? And by and large, the first question at every round table that I was asked was, how do I raise awareness in my staff to actually use it? So these were SENCOs that were trying to drive it through whole school. And they were going, I can't raise awareness. And the minute I leave the room, everybody forgets about it and they don't go near it. And I know that's a big challenge. And for any of us that have been involved, all of us, I suppose, on this call for a while in EdTech, that's a consistent challenge. And I think it will remain, but we're all working hard to change that and create awareness. But you're right, Arran, on Reading Write Gold pains us a lot. What are we doing wrong?
Don't worry. Don't worry. I spent 5.5 years working for Microsoft, and even last week showing people Immersive Reader for the first time. Yeah. It's been there since 2015. It's like it's the same across the board. I just don't. I don't understand it. It's either some people just sit in their own little bubble, and they don't break out of it, or you have these people do it. And I think that comment there from that SENCO to me is that every teacher is a teacher of SEND. Right? Why are they not doing it?
Absolutely.
That's a simple fact. Go on, Dale. I'm going to interrupt. I'm going to let you interrupt.
So, I use Read and Write Gold. From now on, that's in my head, Read and Write Gold. Microsoft Word does this. Because I bought Microsoft Word in 1995, and although it's 2023, Microsoft Word just does this. That's what I've learned is schools seem to buy a product, and that product will never change from the moment they bought it ever. It's like, this is what it does, the only thing it does, and it's never going to change. And yet, slowly but surely, we are getting our customers to understand products evolve, things get added in, things improve, things change. And
it's fascinating though, isn't it, that actually we look at things like products like that we use in schools, but when you look at a product like an iPhone, and every year iOS changes.
Yeah.
And basically it's like me and my wife were talking about earlier, that there is a thing in iOS about you can change you get a different background screen, and it's a bit weird how it works, and it's annoying. It's a little bit annoying because actually if you don't know how it works, you get this thing you have to swipe it away. And my wife hates it. She doesn't like it at all. But actually, I was thinking then, well, actually, you know what? We just accept that Apple are going to update everything every year. They're going to change something, got to update it. And that is the thing, actually, that in education, we think that we don't even remember that, because we're either set at this point, or also that we're kind of still in that concept where actually this piece of technology we've had since this time, we can't buy another one, so we're going to just carry on using it, and it's never going to change because that's what we want to use. So no, I think you're right there, Dale.
I think you kind of started talking about the fourth theme, which is overcoming challenges and concerns. So well done, guys. Well done for remembering what our 5 themes were. But to pick up on it, we use a lot of technology in schools to support students and to perhaps put interventions in place. And it's all fantastic on the screen. I can put my hands up and admit, as a SENCO, I used an amazing piece of software. I'm not going to name it, but an amazing piece of software that developed literacy in students. And I saw, the beginning score in there, the reading age at the beginning. I saw their reading age after 3 months. I saw the impact of that on the screen. I didn't see any of it on a piece of paper in the classroom. So what we're using on EdTech is fantastic. It's there, but we have to make sure we're taking it back to the classroom as well, and that it's being applied in there. Now, things like Texthelp, slightly different because we're giving them the tools to access reading and writing. It's an assistive technology tool. But even so, and I think, Arran, I know you use your phone for an awful lot and you don't necessarily pick up a pen and write very often. And I know, Dale, you've spoken before about not picking up a pen to do things. But occasionally we do still need to pick a pen up. When you walk into a bank and they ask you to sign something, you've still actually got to do it. So we can't completely ignore the traditional teaching, if that makes sense.
No.
Our fourth theme is overcoming challenges and concerns. So we're talking really about time saving. We really want to save our SENCOs a bit of time here. How can we use EdTech to save our SENCOs some time? Who am I going to first? Who's going to volunteer to go first this time?
Can I comment on what you just said there, Abby? Because I'm a person like most people know that I'm severely dyslexic. I don't write at all because I can't read my own writing, and I have a real bugbear around cursive handwriting, in the sense that actually, when a school is looking at writing and they use cursive handwriting fonts, really annoys me. But looking at reading, sorry. So that's the thing. But I'm really with you on the sense that actually we need to teach writing. Writing is a really good strength. But I also don't understand why we don't teach typing.
And I agree.
Yeah,
that is the thing. It's like, why do we not put typing and writing on the same level?
Yeah.
Because to me, they are, right? We've already proven today that we've all said that, like, I don't pick up a pen, I type or I dictate. Abby, you've just said you do the same. You probably do a little bit more writing than I do. Dale doesn't do it. Paddy, you probably will type something in a notepad or on your phone. So why don't we teach typing?
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Now ask me the question again, because unless Dale wants to come in.
I'm going to come in on that.
Go on then.
Because when you think writing, everyone goes to a pencil. And if you look at what is in the handwriting, yes, handwriting is part of that. Composition is part of that. Grammar and spelling. Handwriting is one part of it. And I remember reading 10 years ago that people who were writing your blogs and your news stories were just speaking it to their phone. So they're still doing the same skills. They're still structuring everything and things like that. And even comprehension. Comprehension follows reading words on a page. What happens if I'm listening to them? It's certain bits. We need to restructure English, to me, the way we have it in schools.
I think, Abigail, I agree with you on handwriting. But the reason I agree with you on handwriting is actually because we're still in a culture of that formal assessment piece where handwriting is required.
Yeah.
If I were to think about, I know there's lots of nuances in that, and I don't mean to make it as kind of binary as this, but if you think about the ultimate strategy, and this is not the ultimate strategy, but if you think about how we prepare our children for the world of work going forward, how many of us actually use pen and paper, as part of our, I mean, maybe some of our generation will still want to write in a notepad. I still write, but I write on my iPad with a pencil. It's still my handwriting ultimately, and it adds diagrams, et cetera, all the things we all know. But actually, if you think about it, I'm looking at some digital skills being developed here in Northern Ireland, and actually I got really shocked, and I might have said this to some of you before, or year 8, which is our first year entry into secondary school here, year 8's our first year, are having to be taught what a right click is on a mouse, because they're of a generation that have never used a mouse. Like, never used a mouse. Everything's been touchscreen since they were born. Yeah. So actually, there are digital skills that need to be taught here. I am a big fan of the handwriting piece, but I absolutely, if I could introduce typing into the national curriculum and have it as a mandated piece, I think it should be there. I think it's important because people have to have that opportunity.
Yeah. If we go back to that concept that we are trying to teach children to be citizens of the future.
Yeah.
I used the analogy. I'm going to keep going back to Saturday because I remember the event. We said it there. Even someone that works as an MOT technician needs to use a computer.
Yeah.
They may not. And that is the thing, is that I've been and watched the guy that does the MOT on my dad's car, and he's one finger typing, and they wonder why he's staying until 7 o'clock at night, because he hasn't been taught to type.
Yeah.
Now, what was the question, Abby? Because we forgot the question. We went off a tangent there.
I'll come back to the question, but just to add into that, I learnt typing at school, so I'm of the era where typing was actually one of those options that you could take, and I used to get shipped off to the local FE college to go and learn. It was touch typing on an old manual typewriter. We didn't have electric typewriters at the time. On an old manual typewriter. I don't actually use proper touch typing anymore because my fingers used to get trapped between the keys, and I didn't have big enough hands, so my fingers didn't actually reach properly. But that said, I don't particularly look at the keys when I'm typing now. My children will watch me and go, "How can you type so fast without looking?" And it's because we've got those skills. We've learned them. I was given the chance to do that. Gavin, who's sitting in the background somewhere, also touch types. I don't know how you learnt to touch type, but anyway, I'm giving him a glare. He's now glaring back at me. But he does it as well because he used it in his computing. He used it in early work that he was doing. He hasn't got a microphone, that's why he can't talk. And it is, as you say, a really important skill. We've just had a mandate that we can put British Sign Language into schools and teach that as an additional language. Why don't we get touch typing or digital skills, as Paddy calls them, onto the curriculum? Because actually that would be really valuable.
Yeah, digital skills. I think that right mouse is a really interesting one. But also, how do you sort out your files? File management. File management is the hardest thing ever for anyone. But actually, teaching a child to press the right mouse button and open up make a new folder, and that's it's these things there.
And I think it's also about, I know we're going to come to it later. Well, I think we're going to come to it later, Abby, because you haven't told us what we're talking about. In terms of inclusive learning,
I think you did about 7 months ago, but I didn't read it.
Yes, we all knew we were coming here from January. You're right.
Yeah.
If you think about inclusive learning, we say, right, we're going to teach every child how to type. What happens with a child that cannot literally physically use the keyboard or struggles with that dexterity? So if we're thinking about typing, we got to be thinking about, well, how do you use dictation? How do you say full stop and comma and new paragraph when you start to speak into your computer at this point? Should we be enabling everybody to have a stylus device? Should that be a choice we make where we say every device we buy has to be a Surface or an iPad or something, or a Chromebook with a touch screen, where pupils can still handwrite on screen, because that's what helps them, that's what supports them, that's what empowers them. And I think we got to be careful about those things as well, to ultimately give pupils that kind of choice as to how they express themselves and how they learn that art of writing. The structure you talked about earlier, Dale, is going to run throughout all of those for sure. But we gotta give them as many opportunities. From my perspective, I wouldn't care how my child or my pupil writes and expresses themselves, as long as they do it in whatever way that takes them to get there. And I think that's what's the most important thing.
And that's so true. It is, because
we're going to come back to what's the question again?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, read the question. Go on.
All right, I'll give you both of them together. So it is overcoming challenges and concerns and the time-saving tips for SENCOs. And the last bit of it was creating inclusive learning environment through technology tools. So, Paddy, you do have a good memory back from January. So, Paddy, let's give it directly to you. We want to save our SENCOs some time, and we want to create inclusive learning environments. How can we do it?
So first part of that, collaborative documents and working, whether that's on spreadsheets or whether that's on documents, save a huge amount of time. I think those are fundamental cornerstones to being more productive and being more useful. I think, and we haven't even talked about it, which is surprising, and I'm not going to go there because I'm not the expert on this call, but looking at AI, as scary as it sounds, will help us save lots and lots and lots of time. And Abigail, maybe you can talk to that later. I think using the camera on your phone can save a lot of time. I talked earlier, the inbuilt tools, the camera on your iOS device, the Google Lens, Microsoft Office Lens, will let you grab the documentation and automatically make notes and put it right into a format that's editable and accessible for you. There are tools, I talk about OCR a lot. Now, why is that useful? Well, if you're a SENCO and you need to make something accessible, first of all, it should be accessible from the start, but we all know we get content that isn't accessible. Well, there are automated tools now that will take an image and they'll take a document and they'll automatically convert them in the background. So a screen reader or a text-to-speech or an accessibility tool or JAWS or anything can read those aloud or access them in a way that supports your individual student. So I think collaborative tools that make things easy, use of the camera as much as possible, and all of the rich features, explore that. And then the automated tools that are built in, those three things can save a whole lot of time. And don't forget to explore what's built into your platform. Dale, was talking earlier about, we bought Microsoft Word 20 years ago and we write with it, but the amount of features that are now incorporated in there can be massive productivity savers and massive efficiency savers if only we just take a step back and explore all of the wonderful features that are there. I use both of those tools every single day, and I kid you not, like every couple of days I find something new that I go, wow, I didn't know that was there. And then one of my colleagues will go, yeah, that was there 5 years ago. Paddy, how did you not know that? No idea, but it started to revolutionize what I do. Google Docs today, turn a bullet point list into a checklist that I could strike off and assign to people, saves me 3 or 4 emails on a particular document or comments or notifications. Exploring those small things are really useful. And then to your second point, Abby, in terms of inclusivity, I think 2 points on inclusive practice, 2 points are important. One point is forget about the old days. Why do we forget about the old days? Because what we used to do is almost have an area of exclusion over inclusion. And what I mean by that is we used to go, right, well, here's those 3 pupils that I'm working with, and they need the laptop, they need the support, they need this software. We're now in a world where all pupils should be able to have access to the same pieces of technology. So picking technology and tools on that technology platform that can support every single student is really, really important. Why? Because it increases choice and opportunity I talked about earlier, but also it increases equity of access. It reduces stigma massively. You don't have 4 pupils in the corner using something like text-to-speech. You've got pupils in all corners and the middle of the classroom using text-to-speech because one student has dyslexia and needs the help and support. One student doesn't bother reading their answers, but is actually, an A-star student and needs to sustain that. If only they'd listen to their answers that they write down. They can use it in different ways. And lastly, I suppose, and I'm stating the obvious here, but I think it's really important that we remember at all times that if we have 30 children in our classroom, they are 30 different children in our classroom. They learn in a different way. They get enthused in different ways. They get motivated in different ways. They've all got a different breadth of prior knowledge. They've all got a different interest, a different motivator. They've got different individual needs, some of which you haven't identified, you'll never know about. You'll never know what's going home or what mood they're in that day or how their mental health is. But by giving them access to a tool or a set of tools that's there and the choice and opportunity, by default starts to really help us raise the bar in inclusive practice. And I think that's really, really, really important, recognizing that difference. We all know it. We've all talked about that for years, but actually it's time to put that into practice. And I think it's crucial that we recognize that and recognize that beyond the pupils that we know about that are perhaps have plans, perhaps have individual needs, perhaps have an assistant helping them, that every single pupil is different. They all have a different need in some shape, manner, or form. And technology tools can really strive for that. And it is important, and genuinely, this is the last piece, it is important that to enable all of those things that we start to think as classroom practitioners beyond the SENCO, we need to think about accessibility as core. Are we using headers in our documents? Are we making sure that the font, you talked about it earlier, Arran, is readable and more readable for everybody? Are we just doing simple things like double spacing our documents as we create them for our pupils to make sure that they're just more readable for everybody? They help everybody. So accessibility can't any longer be optional. Accessible practice has to be the standard practice that we all have to go for. So I know there's a lot in there and a lot to unpick, but I think it's really, really important that we recognize the differences and the importance of accessibility, because that's just everybody is helped and every one of us are.
Brilliant answer, Paddy. Very, very, very detailed. That nearly 45 minutes. You managed to keep it slightly shorter. Dale, I'm actually going to come to you and ask you a very similar question. So that, SENCO time savers, inclusive environments. But I know that you also have a bit of a passion for AI like I do. So I think you can include a bit of the AI in your answer there.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go the complete opposite way. I'm not going to talk about the technology or anything like that. I'm going to talk about what people say. And my phrase, which I think everyone here hates, which you hear it a lot, is this is the way we've always done it. And you hear it in schools. We've got this new system. I don't like it. Why? I like this. Why? Because this is the way we've always done it. And that's it. And it's just, I hate it because it basically, you don't move, you don't change, you keep repeating the same mistakes. And in a webinar I did recently, I unpicked that phrase. I did research into it, and it basically came down to 3 reasons people say it. The first one is comfort. Yeah, they're comfortable where they are. They're comfortable with what they do, and that's the reason they want to say. The second one is control, and it might be that they're the person in charge of it, they introduce it, But it's that third one, that competence. So although all of these amazing tools are out there, are your staff comfortable? Are your children, is everyone comfortable in trying that new thing? Or is where they are the limit of their knowledge? And I think those three things you've got to think about when you're bringing in something new. You're challenging those three things. You're making them uncomfortable. They're losing a bit more control, and they might not be that competent in that new software. So when you're thinking about those challenges, it's not the tech that's often the challenge. It's the mindset of that person. And the other one, which I hear, and going back to that assistive technology, is I'm someone who, typing, transcription, all of that, get rid of handwriting apart from for forms. That's my philosophy. And then somebody will always go, oh, yes, but we've done research, and by making notes in hand, it helps, the muscle memory helps you retain that information. And my response is, have we ever done any research on someone who's never written in them typing, how that impacts their memory? And I was fortunate enough a year or so ago to go on a computing course with my daughter, who at the time was 16, and I watched how she learned. And she told me how when she makes her notes and she formats them and neatens them and thinks about them, that helps her remember. So this whole muscle memory thing, we've got lots of research saying it is true, but we don't have any counter research because we haven't done it. So I wanted to get that bit out of the way because that is, for me, really important of why things aren't changing, because of the way we've always done it. Now, AI. There is no two ways about it. You need to think about and learn about AI as a school. You can't ignore it. The government at the beginning of, I think it was June or May, released a document telling schools to use AI with limitations. So be careful on public AI. And that's something people are going to get used to, the idea of a public AI and a private AI. And also, whatever it generates, you are responsible for. But the government recognises that AI will save you time. Now, I would say that Abigail probably goes a bit too far in AI. She literally, any new tool, she's there. I'm a little bit slower, but I'm still just sticking on. I'm still on ChatGPT, and I haven't really moved off from there. But there are so many AIs for different reasons. But for me, ChatGPT for teachers, there are so many things it can do for you. So if you're doing Romeo and Juliet and you want to support a child with a lower reading age, paste that text in, go, can you rewrite with a reading age of 8? And it'll rewrite that paragraph with the same meaning. If you want to translate it into Swedish, it will then translate it into Swedish with the same meaning. The translation in ChatGPT is one of the best out there. GPT-4 is the best out there currently. So translating, summarizing, expanding. You could type into ChatGPT, give me a 20-question multi-choice quiz on World War II for children in Year 6 in England, and it will give you the 20 questions with the answers, and you literally typed in 2 sentences to do that. So there are so many things AI can do that you really shouldn't be ignoring it. You need to be curious again and playing with it. And to me, AI is going to be as transformational to the world as having computers. It is that big. Yeah. We've just got to use it the right way and dive in.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dal. I don't dive on every new AI. There are some of them that I kind of look at and go, no, you're rubbish.
To you, AI is like a ringtone in the 90s. I've got a new ringtone. That's you with AI.
Okay, I'm staying on top of the thing. But you are right. It is transformative. It is like, I compare it to the pocket calculator, actually, of the 1970s, because that came in and everybody went, oh, no, that's going to change. We're not going to be able to use slide rules and nobody will learn maths anymore. Yeah, we still learn maths. Log tables, yeah. Those things. We still do all of that. We still have to learn our times tables and have a test in Year 4. And yet we still use calculators. They are actually part of everyday life for a lot of people now. So that's what AI is to me. It's just the new pocket calculator. And
I find, Abigail, one of the most fascinating things there is just that knowledge that literacy is still fundamental to using AI, and that underpinning and the strength of the ability to question question better and to mine information and understand vocabulary and words and how to ask questions is still and is always for the foreseeable future going to be fundamental to that. And that's quite exciting that we're not usurping that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, because you have to be able to use the right phraseology to put the question in there to get the right input as an output, but then to actually be able to take that output and check, is this actually correct? Because, you know, ChatGPT can occasionally be on the steroids and give you a totally random answer that isn't correct. But yeah, I love ChatGPT, but I love the add-ins for it. For me, they're important. But from a SENCO perspective, one of the questions we get asked all of the time is, how do I teach my staff to write a SMART target? Dale, just close your ears for a second, because I know what you think about SMART targets. But how can I get my staff to write SMART targets? You know what? Just put it in ChatGPT and tell it, make this target SMART. And it will actually do it for you. That, to me, is a massive time saver. I hate blank page syndrome. I suffer from it all the time. If I can put 3 words into ChatGPT and just get a starting point, I'm going to go with it. Anyway, Arran, it's over to you. We've actually only got 1 minute left, but we can do this.
Are you sure? I'll take my 25% extra time as being dyslexic.
Excellent. Love that response. So, what do you suggest for time-saving strategies for SENCOs and improving that inclusive environment in schools?
Time-saving for SENCOs. So understand or try and find ways to understand technology. So it doesn't matter what environment you use, whatever product you use, lots of products have really good help videos. There's so much resource on YouTube, online. Use video content to find out how to do something, and then share that information. So I'll use the Microsoft concept that I have. Microsoft Learn, learn.microsoft.com. Everything is on a video. Everything is a course. Everything you can watch. It's all free. It's really powerful. Lots of companies have their academies that they have that kind of terminology, which really helps. So that, I think, is where, when you're looking at a piece of technology, you're looking at an ecosystem, learn things, because like we've already said, that there's things that people go, well, that might have been there for the past 10 years or might have been there for the past 5 years. So that's what I would say. Supporting SENCO accessibility, I'm going to go what Paddy said. Accessibility needs to be key. It needs to be key for the whole school. If you're not an accessible school, you're not supporting your students, you're not supporting your teachers. That is the point of it. Your teachers are still, if you've got 50 teachers, statistics say you've got 5 dyslexic teachers. So why not support them? That's against the Equality Act. You've got to follow the law, and accessibility is a key. So for me, that's what helps your school. That's what makes the inclusive environment. Being inclusive is supporting people, but also doing what we've said today. Small little changes help everyone, but thinking outside the box and kind of going, you know what, I'm going to create something now. It's got to be accessible for everyone, and it may have that content there. And that, to me, is where AI really helps you, like you've already said, Abby and Dale. For me, ChatGPT is changing how I write stuff. I can dictate it in the way that I dictate it. I can then put it into ChatGPT, it changes it around a bit. I can listen to it and go, well, you know what? I really like that bit. I don't like that bit. And I'll do the one thing, because I'll say it, that we haven't mentioned the dyslexia show, but I'll mention it for 30 seconds. But dyslexia show, one of the words that we've changed in it is now the UK's leading exhibition dedicated to dyslexia. And that word leading came from ChatGPT. And that, to me, that just changed that sentence a little bit for 2024. And that's the thing, because, well, it is the leading exhibition in dyslexia and neurodiversity.
It is.
Brilliant. Thank you, Arran. We have got a question from the audience. Can't get the tech team these days. Okay. So we have got somebody asking, getting approval on provisions for school board examinations, so exams, is very challenging. The concerns arise when the use of EdTech is limited at the board level. The exam boards stringently allow the use of EdTech during exams. Your input, please. Can you put that back up, Doug? We were all still reading it then. Anybody
so basically what
they're saying
is what they're saying is if you can't use it in the exams, is it worth investing in? And that comes to me, what you're asking there, is the exams the be all and end all, or is their future life past that one moment in their life the be all and end all?
And that's a good answer, Dale. And actually, you know, what you can't do is predict what JCQ is going to stick in that orange book, which is no longer an orange book but sits on the screen. You can't predict what they're going to put in it this year, next year, or the year after. You might find they do an August update that says every student can use technology in every single exam, at which point you will have penalised them if you're not allowing students to use it all the way through, because of course it's normal way of working and all of that. So the exam boards were generally moving towards online papers. So we have seen an increase in them this year. We've seen those accessible papers being used. We've seen far more of them than we have done in previous years. So it would not surprise me, I'm not going to put my name to it, but it wouldn't surprise me within the next 3 years if we don't see that every student would be allowed to set an online version of their exam paper and type answers in. Possibly with spell check, etc., turned off if they don't have that as a concession, but that ability to access it electronically, in which case digital skills and typing would be far more important than a lot of other things. So I hope that helps the person ask the question. But the only
My
question we had as
nephew
well.
suffers from dysgraphia, and it was years fighting for getting him to use an iPad or a laptop in the classroom. But what that meant is he learnt how to answer every question in as fewest words as possible. When he got his laptop, he still answered the same way. So even when he had his laptop, they had to retrain him on how to answer exams. He would answer a 6-mark question as short as possible. So when he finally got the laptop and they removed that barrier, he had to relearn how to answer questions. So to me, the whole writing is the best. No, writing is a necessity to a certain level. What we want is the creativity. And if technology can release that creativity, then we use technology.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
that's correct.
Thank you, Dale. Okay. So it leaves me to say thank you to Arran, Dale and Paddy for their very valuable contributions this afternoon and for addressing the one question that we managed to get there. If anybody else pings any across to us, I'm going to be emailing all three of you. I hope that the audience is taking away a bit of a deeper understanding of some of those benefits and challenges and best practices that we can have in using EdTech to support our students. You'll notice that our guests generally did not plug their products because that's not what they are about. All three of these individuals on this, yes, they have products that they could sell you and they could market to you, but actually they agreed to give their time to today's session to talk to you generally about EdTech, and I think that's really important. They're not just there to get another sale from you, they're there to share their expertise and their knowledge and their understanding. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me this afternoon. I'm determined to get a female on the next one because I do feel kind of left out here as being the only EdTech female having this conversation. And thank you to everybody who came to join us in the webinar online. So take care, everyone. And until next time, goodbye, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. No idea if they can hear us.
I can.